Hey everybody, welcome back to Venting with Us with your girl Christelle. I hope everybody's having a wonderful week or had a wonderful week. Um, okay, take a look. What is she wearing? She's wearing a sweater. Why is she wearing her a sweater almost in May? Like we have a week left of April. Okay. I First of all, I can't do it anymore. I really can't. It's like it's killing my soul that I'm still in sweaters, okay? Meanwhile, I talk to my girlfriends and they're like, "Yeah, it's like 80 degrees." I'm like, "Shut up." I'm so mad. And I swear to you, I'm at the tipping point where once summer officially comes out here, if the first person that says to me, "Oh, it's so hot," I am gonna fucking punch them in the face. I'm gonna go real Bronx. I'm gonna need my Vaseline so I don't get cut up. It's gonna be, yeah, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad. That's all I'm gonna say. It's gonna be bad because I seriously, I am over wearing sweaters. I'm ready to wear my shorts, my skirts, my dresses. And that's another thing is that I've noticed that I'm going through this little baby transition right now. Because before I had the surgery, I really didn't want to like start buying jeans and all of this stuff. Because I had also gained a few pounds due to, having endometriosis. And I was like, "No," because then afterwards, I'm gonna lose all this weight, which I'm losing the weight. It's not coming off fast enough. Then again, I'm not really exercising either. So I'm not dipping and diving or like twirling or whatever. Um, but um yeah, so I'm like, I don't want to best jeans, but it's still like jeans weather. I don't know. I don't know. And yeah, I'm not one of those people that follows the trends. I know like skinny jeans are out and they're considered like old people. And I don't want to be a part of the old people category at all because she is not old. Please. She still got it together. But um I also see my thing is with the wide jeans is that there's two things that I love about the wide jeans. One, I wear a lot of stuff that's like light colored, like whites, pinks, and all blues and all those colors. But when I wear them with my jeans, then I have to wear short socks. And then when I wear them with short socks, when I walk, sometimes in my sneakers, the damn stupid socks slip all the way in the thing in my sneaker, and then I have to take my sneaker off. It's a whole thing. But and then the other thing is that with wide lamp jeans, which I've got a couple, um, they tend to make my thighs look bigger, which is not what I'm going for right now. Yeah, insecurity much? Yes. Thank you very much. So it's a dilemma. I'm gonna figure this out. I am gonna try and go to Macy's this week and figure out my life from there. But it's gonna rain next week, so I just don't know. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I go through this every year because I never. Why is it you can always have a lot of clothes, but then you feel like you don't have a lot of clothes? I hate that feeling. I definitely need sandals. That's for sure. That's going to be a major problem because a lot of my sandals I had to throw out last year. So but I have two great documentaries. I can't wait for this. And by the way, thanks a lot. My last episode, you guys were like deep diving in on that last episode. So stick to what you know, right? But I have two great documentaries for today and for next week. We are going to talk about the death and life of Lamar Odom today. And then next week, I have a really good one. I have another betrayal episode, which is the New Year's Eve intruder. Ooh, so please stay tuned in for that one because you're going to love that one as well. So let's go into Lamar Odom. So those that don't know who Lamar Odom is, which if you live in a box, you don't know who he is, but if you follow basketball, NBA, you do know that he was at one time one of the biggest Lakers basketball players. And of course, he was married to Khloe Kardashian, the Kardashian crew. So this documentary came out in Netflix. I wanted to actually go over and do this documentary a couple of weeks ago, but then Betrayal came out and I really wanted to do that one. And I was kind of torn and I was kind of sitting on it because here's the thing. I was such a huge Lamb and Chloe fan. I knew that this documentary was gonna fuck me up like hard when I tell you guys. And I didn't want to bust my bubble when I did. And I'm gonna tell you how way back this is like for me. I remember at one point when Chloe and Lamar um had their show when Twitter was like the TikTok era and you know everybody tweeted about everything. Which is how I was able to get my 10K up there very quickly because I think I just hit it at the right moment. If you go on there now, because I haven't been on there, I think I'm at like 6K, which makes me a little sad, but my fault. I haven't been on there. Whatever. Not about me. Um, but I remember following the show, and I don't know if it was really like Chloe or Lamar or maybe somebody that handles their social media, who knows, because there are people that, work off of just posting and keeping, that part of the celebrities' lives off. And I remember we used to be able to tweet and then you would be able to like talk to them and not like big huge conversations and where you could just be like, oh my God, Lemmy, blah 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 blah. And I had a lot of like responses back and likes on my page, and I was able to gain a lot of followers from that. So that I kind of knew that in the Twitter world, that is exactly how you had to get followers. So I kind of like figured that out very quickly. But let's start from the beginning of this true romance that became a disaster of a relationship. So once upon a time, there was Lamar Odom, who was fresh out of high school. He was dating at the time his then ex fiancee, Liza. They both were high school sweethearts. And Lamar always wanted to play basketball. He was always into sports. He was always the social butterfly of the crew. They ended up having 3 kids. One of the kids, unfortunately, lost their lives to SIDS at a very, very young age. His name was Jaden. That brought such a darkness to Lamar, and I don't think that he ever, and this is my opinion, he ever recovered from that. They say that the biggest loss that you can have in your life is losing a child, losing a parent. Those are the most impactful things that can happen to you that are very traumatic. And you're like, that traumatic. I try to use that, I love it. But Lamar at one point was a part of the Clippers from 1999 all the way to 2003. He was a part of the Clippers, and then he was traded. He was traded over to Miami Heat from 2003 to 2004, and then shortly soon after, he became a part of the Lakers. Now, around that time, uh, basketball was the sport that everybody was hooked on. Not to say that, basketball is not these days, but you had like the greats of the greats back in those days, especially on the Bulls. You had Michael Jordan, you had Shaq, you had Shaquille O'Neal, you had all of these grand star players in basketball. And I remember that, as much of as I love football, I'm a football head now, but I was like deep dive like basketball fan. I loved basketball. There was nothing that could take me away from that genre. It was always good to like hang out with the boys and talk about basketball. And it would, the guys would always find it weird because they were like a girl talking about basketball. Like this is like, but I was a tomboy back in those days too. But they would, it was just the time where things were so good. When Lamar entered the world of the Lakers, he states in the documentary that it was like having the red velvet carpet brought out to you. There was everybody wanted to be a part of the Lakers because the Lakers was like the creme de la creme of all teams to be a part of. You had nothing but the best. You had Kobe on the team. Like it was just pure heaven to be there with the Lakers. They were at their finest. They were at their highest peak at that time. Like they were an unstoppable team in that era. And everybody was hooked, including myself. Then Lamar gets invited to a party. At this party, this event, he meets Chloe. Now, Chloe, at this time, this is when reality TV was changing the scope of television and it was an all time high. And there were so many different things. It was like road rules and real world coming out, but nothing like the Kardashians. Though at that time, the Kardashians weren't as huge as, of course, they are now, which I think we're kind of seeing it now kind of fade away. And it's like there's all the kids are like growing up. There's nothing more that, you can go with this story. But and I don't know if Hulu picked them up again. I don't know. But anyways, regardless of the point. Um, so you had, and Lamar says he's like, I had no idea who Chloe was, and they were like, yeah, she's a Kardashians and blah blah blah. Okay, so this is the part where it starts to hurt my heart and my soul because he bluntly says he's like, he absolutely adored Chloe. They literally just were hooked within that day. And they were married within a month, which I remember at this time, everybody was talking about this. They're like, who falls in love and gets married within a month? Like, that's crazy. It's unheard of. And I kind of feel like, I I have so many friends that are in that situation now where they've gotten married within a month or within 2 weeks of knowing each other, and I guess it's that when you know, I have no idea, I've never been in that situation where I could be like, "Yeah, I wanna marry you. Let's get married tomorrow." I've never had that. So, but I think when you know. And I've had friends, that said, you don't know that person until you actually live with them, and it's not gonna work out. And those people are still married. Like it's like they're in like it's some of my friends are like 8, 9 years in deep, I have one girlfriend that's now 15 years with her husband and they got married after 2 weeks. So you can't, it's such a stigma to say that, okay, this is the way it should be and this is the way it should not be. You can't fall into those lines. It's also kind of like the apps, the dating apps. A lot of people say, oh, they don't work. It didn't work for me, but I know a couple of people where it has worked and they're still married. I have one friend who found a millionaire on this dating app. I was like, what the fuck? I want a millionaire. Like, I don't want to work anymore. I still want to do what I do, but it's like, how did you? That was like the creme de la creme. And I have another girlfriend who was on the dating app and she met her husband. He moved from the one state to another state and they have kids now together. So I guess when you know, you just know. And for me, the Lamar and Chloe was every girl's fairy tale, and she has always said, he loved me even when I was fat, even when, it wasn't like that. We weren't making tons of money. Like the Kardashians were big, but we weren't bringing in money like we are now. It was a different time. So, for me, it was like, "Oh my god, that's like, that's such a fairy tale kind of storyline." So soon after, he gets married and people are questioning him. He says this in the documentary, and this is the part where I start to go left with Lamar. He's like, "Yeah, joining the Lakers was like the dream, right? You get the luxury of it. But marrying a Kardashian, yes, it wasn't so much the basketball part of it, it was the lifestyle. That's where it becomes ugh for me. Because, you already had that lifestyle, and you could have made that lifestyle. You didn't need more than that. And this is what happens in Hollywood. Now your ego starts to get the best of you because you want more. And when you want more, sometimes that candy isn't good for you, and especially if you don't know how to handle it. He's always said this throughout the years that, he just was not ready for what came. And this is where the darkness of the story now begins. So now they're married, they're a month in, they're living the great lavish lifestyle. They're in their moment, they're trying to have a baby. She can't get pregnant. I always say that things happen for a reason. And, I don't ever think that she was supposed to have a baby with Lamar because of everything that she went through. Um, Chloe ends up getting her spin-off show from the Kardashians, and now she gets a spin-off show for Miami with Courtney, which I was a fan of too. um, but I started thinking as I'm watching this, and I remember this distinctively. I said, "Oh, wait a minute. Now it's starting to click." Because this was right around the time where, and now they're showing Lamar being Lamar. And he's like, "My wife is out of town and we're going to go hang out with the next bitch." I don't know if he said bitch, but the next girl. And there was a lot of infidelity there. That comes out in the documentary that he cheated several times with Chloe. He was doing drugs already around this time. He was doing a lot of cocaine. Crack seemed to be his go to. Um, so when you watch the Miami series, you if you remember, Chloe was always constantly fighting with either, I believe it was Courtney or Kim, that she had to fly out to LA, she had to be with her husband, that they were newly married. But I think, now again, this is my personal opinion, I think because all of this was happening, this was starting to like take such a hold of her. She says one part of the documentary, she's like, "I've never been exposed to drugs like this. I didn't know how to handle this, and that I was feeding his addiction instead of actually helping him." It gets to the point where Lamar is so out of it and his ego is just getting the best of him that he ends up going to the Bunny Ranch. Now, he has been going to the Bunny Ranch for a very long time. For those that don't know what the Bunny Ranch is, it's a brothel that used to be located in the outskirts of Nevada. So basically, the way brothels work in Nevada is it's illegal to have a brothel in the city of Nevada. But outside, where the desert is, in the middle of nowhere, is where a lot of these brothels are located. And you have to know kind of the area to know where these brothels are because that's where they're legal. But inside the skirts, they're not. You can go to a strip club and do all that, but prostitution is not legal within Nevada. It's only legal outside of it. So Now Lamar's going to the brothel. He's doing a lot of cocaine. He has his own suite out there. It's getting to the point where it's so obnoxious. It's that one of the girls takes Lamar's phone, and this has to be really bad when one of the brothel girls is like calling your wife, and she's like, "Look, he is out of control. You need to come and get him. Like this is 3 nights in. I don't this is ain't working for me anymore. My coochie hurts. Like I don't know. He's like sluggish over here, whatever she said allegedly. But Chris Jenna ends up coming to go get him in the brothel. He states that at one point he looks up, he sees Chris, and she's like, "Well, hey, Lammy," because that's what they used to call him all the time. And then there's an intervention that's brought into the picture. So the whole family, of course, they're concerned. They loved Lamar. They convinced Chloe to get him to clean up, and they tell her, okay, this is what you're going to say. You're going to say, if you don't fix the situation, if you don't clean yourself up, check yourself into rehab, I want a divorce. So here's the problem with this. When someone is that deep into drugs, and depending on what the drug is, when they hear stuff like that, they're going to go in the opposite direction, because at that point, they're not ready to take it for what it is. Like they have not crashed and burned yet. You hear these stories all the time. So they set up this intervention. Lamar comes. They give him this. She gives him the storyline, like da 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 or divorce. He comes back at her and says, "Okay, I'll divorce you. I just need my passport." And she's just like, "What the fuck? Like, are you serious? I didn't want a divorce." Now she's looking at her, all her peoples, and she's like, "What do I do now?" Like, and it was basically like, checkmate, bitch. Like, basically that's what it was. And he flies out. Now he's just doing heavy, 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 heavy drugs at this point. Goes back to the bunny ranch. They know who he is. And it's like probably, he said, I think it was like 3 or 4 nights, and where he's at the bunny ranch. Now he starts to overdose. And I believe he had a stroke there. And the girls are now freaked out. They call 911, and they're trying to get a hold of this story before it's let out. And, I don't know if it's the Kardashian camp or whoever it was, but someone came and they were like, "Look, you don't want this. You don't want this type of publicity." And the guy's like, "Listen, you don't know my boss. He's going to eat everything up." He showed receipts. He went on camera. Like, this was the highlight of his day. I think a lot of people were shocked about this. And Lamar was in the hospital. He was unconscious. Chloe, at this point, had filed for divorce, but the papers were not signed. So she was able to still take care of him. In the documentary, she states that Lamar's father allegedly wanted to pull the plug. And she was like, no, that's not going to happen. She gave him a few bucks, and then he left. She never saw him again. Some time passes. He wakes up, and now he's going through recovery. He could not walk. He could not talk. Everything, he had to rebuild and restructure his life back. He had like 6 heart attacks. It was crazy that what you think would change someone's life forever and make them want to be a better person did not happen. What ends up happening is that after some time, Chloe, being who she is, and again, we're all like, yes, they're going to get back together. This is what we wanted, not like this, because this situation's fucked up, but this is what we wanted. This is true love. And this is all we get, because then this is the scary part about reality TV and just stuff from the news, because you don't know the whole story. She takes him, she rents a house because he had nowhere to live. He had no money. He had nothing. And she gets him the best therapy. And she says in the documentary, and this is the part that breaks my heart. She's like, once you smell the smell of cocaine or crack, you know that smell. It's a familiar smell. And she said she, for whatever reason, came one day to pop in to see how Lamar was doing. And as soon as she opened the door, she could smell it. And at this point, Lamar is still in a wheelchair. He cannot talk. He can't do anything, right? She goes upstairs and he's there full blown smoking crack. And she's like, what the fuck? How the hell did you can't talk? You can't do this. Well, surprise, surprise, bitches. This guy loved this lifestyle so much that he ended up faking that he couldn't talk, that he couldn't do certain things. Like, you realize how like crazy and demented of a person you have to be to do something like that. And it's not so much of him doing the crack, but it's more of the emotional toll that you put onto this one person that was trying to do something so good for you. And to know that it was a lie, it's crazy to me. Like, he must have been like, oh, yeah, by the way, I can talk and I'm smoking crack here. Like, what the fuck, man? you know? So she ends up filing for divorce and, it's not good. I He's no longer on the Lakers team. It's not like he has a job. He, at one point, it had stated allegedly that the Lakers traded him over to the Mavericks because he was upset or he felt disrespected over a failed deal with Chris Paul. There have been also talks that, the Lakers were already at this point done with his ego and the drugs and everything. They just didn't want to have any association with him. That was allegedly. And then the other part was that the manager just wanted to move into different directions with Kobe. And, they had to, they saved money, like $18 million with removing Lamar off the team, allegedly again. So we don't really know what it is. You know, well, and I guess we'll never really know because they'll never really speak about it. But what's sad about this whole story is that even at the end, and Lamar is on tour right now. He's, promoting this documentary, but he's making Chloe look so bad. There's no, he's like, I love that girl, but I'll never be in love with her again. It just makes it came off as like that limelight, you're still trying to get to that fame again, what was and what will never be again. Because now what do? You're gonna do this documentary, you'll make some money off of this, but then what is your next move? And I think that's the problem what a lot of people in this industry don't realize is that, look, it's the fame and the glitz and the glamour is great at one point, but what is your backup plan when everything starts to fade? Because everything's going to go away. Reality TV is not going to be reality TV anymore like it was. What are you going to do? Write a book now? You've got to have a plan B to fall back on, unless you find another rich girl where you can get back into the public eye, which is what a lot of these guys do, unfortunately. And I'm not saying only guys, girls do it too. They'll date whoever is relevant at the moment so that way they can just have their 5 minutes of fame. But we all have to kind of like stand on our own feet and be like, you know what, I did that, bitch. I did that, and I'm so proud of Chloe in that way because she does have her own businesses. She can be able to say, you know what, yes, I have a Kardashian name, but I have a popcorn line, I have a chip line, I endorse this, I do this, and I have my kids. She has something that she can be able, when all of this in the end goes dark, she can fall back on. And that's the takeaway with Chloe. I feel sad for Lamar because I think he's still struggling to find that. And they always say what's in the dark always comes to light. And I think this is kind of an eye opening. And if it's not, then it's soon to be. Eventually something's going to happen where it's going to be hard enough for him to figure it out. So we'll see what the next step is. If not, we'll be talking about it in a different light. I don't know. All right, guys. I hope you had an amazing time with me. Don't forget, next week we have Betrayal, the New Year's Eve Intruder. That one is going to be an excellent one. I cannot wait for you guys to hear that one. I love you guys so much. Thank you again for always supporting me, and get whoever it is you can to continue to follow the show and get more followers on here. All right, guys. Love you. Take care. Have a great weekend. Stay warm. Summer, I miss you. Have a great one, guys. Have a great weekend. Love you.